the 1st of May, 2022. Hey, so thanks for tuning in to my official YouTube channel. Make sure to like and subscribe to my official YouTube channel, like this official YouTube video of mine. And if you're going to leave a comment, please do have respect and etiquette. Also, go to my website, www.susanmealing.com. For clarifications, my official YouTube videos, I just do a straight run through. I don't do any editing. I don't have that on my official YouTube videos, just for the clarifications of. It's completely, I believe the term is improv. I think that's what that's called. So, but yet it's not, because it's reality. So I have discussed in prior official YouTube videos of mine, as well as in-person, face-to-face, in-person, over the years, as well as in a few books of mine and my journal blog, The Ornery PSA. My books you can find on my website, www.susanmealing.com. The links will take you to Amazon, and the journal blog is there as well, as far as The Ornery PSA. So, I have discussed in reference to an invitation I received in reference to Marine and Science Technology School with the Navy attachment. The year that I was invited to Marine and Science Technology School with the Navy attachment, or MAST for short, or the acronym of, I had earned second and third place in sparring and form in the overall aspect in the final level of the International Taekwondo competition as a green belt. I had only been a green belt for essentially literally 1 or 2 weeks before the paperwork to file for the first competition in that circuit. And the requirements were you had to place in first, second, or third in both sparring and form to be allowed to go to the next level of the competition regarding Taekwondo. And I was 12 years old. And it was broken down in 2 categories, male and female. The minimum belt that you were allowed to be in order to, but it's also the minimum belt in reference to sparring, is a green belt. However, it wasn't a common factor for a green belt to be involved with that. And so I had done that. My sensei at the dojo was Sensei Bob. Sensei Bob, from what I remember, in his office, he had a lot of military regalia, but very small. So he had an American flag in one of those wooden triangle boxes, and he said it represented some of the stuff that he had learned from his father and what his father had been a part of. And then he also had his rack of coins, which military guys understand. And then he also had certain insignia for some of the stuff that he himself had been a part of. I have a guesstimation he may have had something to do with the Navy. The only time, much later, after having went to the International Taekwondo competition, that he had not been a teacher in the dojo, he had said to us that he had been called and he had something to take care of. So for a few weeks, he was going to be gone, and we were going to have a substitute Taekwondo instructor. And then when he came back, he was a little bit, he had a little bit of a karate attitude. he calmed down a little bit as time went on. So I don't know what his employment was in conjunction to being a sensei at the dojo. However, that same year, I had informed Sensei Bob that I had earned the award in reference to my ocean poster of the before and after for a cleanup because of a lot of stuff that was going on in the Atlantic area, the ocean. And so then I received an invitation a few weeks after having went to Governor Christine Todd Whitman's office in Trenton, New Jersey, because only 2 schools were invited because of somebody's poster in each of these schools having been more than whatever. And so because of whoever's poster it was that had stood out more, that was why the school was capable to have that field trip. So at Marlboro Middle School, they didn't say whose poster it was, though the question, we were allowed to ask one question to the governor, and so I figured maybe the Marine and Science Technology School with the Navy attachment invitation that I had probably had to do with that, among a few other factors, because I got to speak with some of the security guys. In the Capitol building in 1996. So in my defense, my babysitter's husband had been a security director and director of security at the World Trade Center and World Trade Center Plaza. And every now and then he would ask me to do a security check. And when he asked me to do a security check, I was supposed to, depending on the time, it was kind of, I can make the joke, see spot, run. And we found Spot. And in that joke, I was born in the year of the dog, so. So, by veterinary standards, what a biological female dog is, and that's fine, which I can, there is that factor, but then I can also complain at a level that some might, I guess it depends on your opinion. So, I can make fun of myself very easily. Some might call that bitching, I'm not certain, it is what it is. So anyway, for those who know about Marine and Science Technology School with the Navy attachment, or MAST for short, in order to actually take the tests, you have forms that you as for me, the invitee, to fill out. So I had one piece of paper that I had to fill out, and then there was a stack of paper that Mike and Anna, my biological parents, had to fill out. And they had, one of those thick manila envelopes that, I think it was like 11 or 12 by 18 inches. So there's all sorts of legal documents and stuff like that for those who would know. And so in order for me to just take the tests as far as that was concerned, and they filled it out. And it had to be filled out before I could actually take the tests. And so I was all excited because I had been working on a lot of stuff, so I was all ready to go. So excited. And so I was taken to the testing facility area, and for those who would know, it was the equivalent of the computer portion regarding the ASVAB. And so it was several hours long, And you had to go through all these different sections, and it was, for those who know how the ASVAB, essentially, I'm fairly certain it was the equivalent of, and my score was a 93 when I was 12 years old. And then the second portion of that testing was, I think it was a 3 or a 5 page essay, front and back. And so so if you look at my journal blog, the Ornery PSA, on my website, www.susanmealing.com, the journal blogs could give you an example of my essays for and so there were usually only 2 or 3 questions per page side. So I remember this distinctively. So everybody was handed their little stapled packet in reference to the tests as far as the essay portion. And I think it might have been 5 pages front and back. And as the individual was passing out these packets, they're explaining things. We're about 2 or 3 seats apart from one another at a long table. And as this person is passing this out and explaining, they said, if you need extra pieces of paper to complete, and I just rose my hand. And I remember this individual, the male, looks over at me and he says, I wasn't done speaking. And I said, yes, but you said that if we need extra pieces of paper, I already know myself. So if I could get extra pieces of paper, that'd be great. And the guy was like, well, are you really sure? I know myself. And so he, continues passing out the packets. And he's like, sure, it's sure. If you actually, these essay questions. We really, if you really need another piece of paper, there's plenty of space though between these 2 to 3 questions per side. and they are going to require an in-depth answer. Excuse me, I reiterate, I need some pieces of paper. And so the guy was like, if you really do, I will bring you pieces of paper. Okay, you're gonna probably need to give me 2 to 3 pieces of paper per question. And the guy said, sure, okay, no, that's fine. If. So I get the packet and I start looking at it and excuse me. And the guy says, yes. May I get about 5 to 10 extra pieces of paper, please? And the guy was like, do you really think you're gonna need that amount of paper? Yes, I do. I looked at the first question. Yes. So he said, well then write really small. Oh, okay. I'm still going to need extra pieces of paper. So I did what I could to answer each of the questions in half of the size of the typed question. And I still needed pieces of paper. And we had, I think it was a 3 or 3.5 hour time frame to complete these essays, okay? I did complete them, and I needed somewhere between 5 to 10 pieces of paper. And so that guy, it was funny because when we went to hand in our packets and I walk up and here you go, and he's just, I really didn't think that that was gonna occur. Well, here you go. So then there were 3 interviews as far as that was concerned for me. The first interview had to do with Mike and Anna. And so they had gone in for their interview, but at the same time I was being interviewed. And so they did whatever they did, and I explained myself as far as what my interview was. The second interview was just where I was interviewed and I was dropped off, and as far as that was concerned. And the third interview is where there was a question the male in the suit behind the desk had asked, and it was something along marine biology. And I said, "Oh yeah, because there's this fishy. I don't know what it's called, but I haven't seen it in any of these textbooks, but it's got these teepees that go like this." It's so cute. It's got teepees, and it's got kind of a little smile face, and it's got teepees, and it's got this little light. It's a little dinky light. It's just it's huge, but it's got these teepees. 2002, they found an anglerfish, and so anyway, I received in the mail a letter. There was no stamp mark, just for clarification. It was just an envelope with my name on it that was handwritten, that looked like Anna's handwriting. Anyway, I opened it up and it had the little perforated sides from those who remember the printers back then with the little dots. And it said, we regret to inform blah, 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 blah. And I was upset. I mean, I'll acknowledge I was upset. I thought, it would have been good enough. And, Mike and Anna were at the front steps, and they were like, "Oh, this is how they told me to do this." So this is how messed up it was. I mean, there's all the stuff regarding my journal blog, the Ornery PSA, on my website, www.susanmeeling.com, and finding a silver lining that explains my childhood as well, for some examples. So I was upstairs in my room, and Mike and Anna go, this is how it sounded. "Susan, what? You need to go check the mail." Okay, I hadn't ever been asked to check the mail before. That's weird. All right, fine, I'll stop reading my book and whatever. You're on the first floor, you can't just walk outside, go down. What's wrong with you? So I walk outside and there is one piece of mail. Just one. And it just so happens to be this envelope with Anna's handwriting on it. No stamp mark at all whatsoever. Okay, so I open it up because it's addressed to me. I read it. Has the little perforated sides. In comparison to my invitation to MAST, which was extremely thick paper. Additionally, there were perforations along the bottom and the top for those who remember that type of printer. And in comparison to the paper that was sent regarding that packet, much thinner because it was that type of printer paper. And it said, the regret or whatever. And it's like, yeah, I was upset. And Mike and Anna were like, "So what just so happened to be in the mail today?" I was distraught because I was really wanting to go to MAST. I really had I was excited. And Patricia, my biological sister, she was sitting there and she's just, what does the mail say? You have no idea what it took for me to remain calm. The irony, for those who remember me telling them about those creepy clown statues that randomly would turn, and then the music and stuff like that, with the texture that just, ugh. Well, as I did what I could, there was the click, 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 and then the sound of the, I think it was Send in the Clowns. And Mike looked at that and he looked at Anna and said, I don't think that's a good idea. I don't think that's a good sign. And Anna said, well, Patricia can't. So because Patricia can't. And Mike looked at those clowns that were spinning around. That slow music of do, 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 do. And Anna was just like, see how happy, but well, by the time of first week in Marlboro High School, which would be around the same time of Marine and Science Technology School beginning, I had issues at Marlboro High School. There was the homeroom teacher situation that Mike had had when he went to Marlboro High School. However, there were teachers who had asked me why I was in their class. I said, well, it's my schedule. And they had issues because of the attendance. And I was, well, I don't understand what the problem is. And so then there were other situations that occurred. And so before the end of the week, there was the meeting with the principal. And Mike and Anna decided that I was going to go to St. John Vianney High School. Well, by the second or third week of school, there were Navy guys. I guess. I thought they were Marine guys, but I also didn't know. They were at the house. And Mike and Anna were arguing with these guys. And my neighbor across the street that I had went to the same babysitter with, I mean, he was a year younger than me, but same babysitter, same elementary school, same middle school, and then literally lived directly across the street. And we would play together and stuff like that. He had brought up times where he saw these Navy guys with the military van, the government plates and everything. And Mike and Anna were just, oh, it's no big deal. They're just, well, after the first year, as far as freshman year, there were certain situations at St. John Vianney High School. And not necessarily bad, though there were those who, hey, Susan, my dad is in the Navy, or something along those lines. It's like, oh, that's cool, whatever. Why are you and brought it up as far as Marine and Science Technology School. So it went around the St. John Vianney High School that I was supposed to be in MAST. And I didn't believe anyone because I was like, no, I received this letter. And, that's just how it went. So I asked Mike and Anna about it, and they said, no, you whatever. And it's like, why are you lying? I'm supposed to be in MAST. Get out of my way. And so it was a heavy situation, and it was only because Patricia couldn't go. Patricia didn't even want to go. It realistically was just that communist type of view where the wishful thought that she was exceptional enough for something she wasn't even interested in. She was afraid of the ocean. She wouldn't even put her feet in the ocean. She was more scared of the oceanic waters than Grandmama was, as far as my cousin Jade, because at the minimum, my grandmama didn't mind going to the boardwalk. My biological sister couldn't handle the beach. She had to go to a different summer camp just to avoid going to the beach. So it's one of those, why would you ever be so stupid? And then there's the facts as to whatever that legal packet is of papers, those legal documents, all of the work that it takes when it comes to the armed forces. And granted, okay, it's not officially, but it does have the Navy attachment. So for those who don't understand it's literally like a military school. So literally, if I remember correctly regarding the schedule, you had school Monday through Friday, or Monday through Thursday. On Friday, it was just drills. It was, you had your uniform on, you practiced as far as the different marches, and you got everything, if I remember correctly, from the paperwork and stuff like that. And so, if I remember, it was a gray uniform. I was so excited. And I was extreme. I think it was a white cap cover. And I was enthralled to be capable to go. And so, but then there was that. And so then it got more and more heavy. So after freshman year, during summer, when I was a camp counselor in training, if I remember correctly, or a camp counselor, I had a bunch of children in the group, and their parents were either Coasties, Marines, or Navy. Not all of them, but they were in that association group. And, what are you doing? Oh, well, attend St. John Vianney High School. This is, are you supposed to be I applied, I applied myself in regards as best as I could to MAST, but I received this letter. And they're, okay. And so it was an issue. Told Mike and Anna about it. Mike and Anna were just, those military types, those, whatever. And except, why do I keep being asked by that? So these military guys continue showing up to the house. I'm sure there have to be some military guys from the armed forces of the United States of America, like adults, as far as active duty, National Guard reservists or veterans, that would be capable to understand those aspects. And so in, I can't remember if it was 1997 or 1998, Mike and this guy almost get into a knockdown, drag-out fight in the front yard. I remember, and he had Marine Corps dress blues on. This might be an affinity. Had Marine Corps dress blues on with the stripes on the side, had the whatever, as far as the sword, the whole, looking all perfect and stuff with his little shiny buttons and looking all, as far as that uniform is concerned. And so that high and tight hairstyle. And so, and I remember I come back from St. John Vianney High School. It was after the bus situation. It was after the Saturday situation. And I remember there were some people, they're like, Susan, why you got a Marine up at your house? And I said, I don't know. But he looks damn good, I gotta say that. That uniform, I don't even need to see the front. how he looked good. And everyone on the bus was like, Susan, we didn't know you could talk that way. You don't know how it is about that. That's, I'm gonna get off this. You guys have a good day. And they're just like, Susan, ooh. I was like, that's mine. Which at that point in time, I was very, very modest about. Nobody knew who I had a crush on as far as anything. I didn't ever discuss that sort of stuff. And then I see a Marine in his dress blues, and it's like, I'm gonna, how do you do it? No better, good, no, there's no better of a unit. Good morning, sunshine. I can make a joke about that printer paper. I can make a pop culture joke, and literally because of the way the printer paper was, because of the dots. Hello, nurse. Good morning, sunshine. And the bus of people, they're just like, Susan, wow. And when you really take in consideration, this is what it is, I'm just like, and they hadn't ever, which is an irony because there are plenty of people in the state of Texas, or even Washington State, regarding what's supposed to be considered the consenting lifestyle, who wouldn't have ever, except for anybody that was, there's a couple of people, there was a female who was married to a Marine. It's like, you know how that dress blues uniform is. It looks fantastic on them and then on the floor, because, you know. It's a personal thing. Good morning. You know, and so yes, there are other uniforms that look, I'm just saying good morning. That's all I'm saying. So all I'm saying is good morning. Good afternoon. Anyway, this is literally as I'm walking from the back of the bus here, well, not full back, but the middle back of the bus. I'm just, well, it's like, and everybody that I'm walking by, they're like, Susan. Males as well, by the way. Susan. We didn't even know that was possible from you. Wow. And, make sure my uniform, I mean, I can't look as good of a uniform as that, but, you know, I'll do what I can. Make sure my, whatever, those black patent leather, whatever, it's just, it's not that good as his, but, and so, I get off the bus, bad choice of words, I guess, and so I'm all excited, and it's like, hi, you know, what are you doing here? And Mike goes, you get inside. Oh, hi. You have such... Again, we moved shortly after. So then, I've already explained, as well as wrote about, in regards of finding a silver lining, and my journal blog, The Ornery PSA, on my website, www.susanmealing.com. And when I explained, I mean in discussions in the year of 2000 through the year of 2013 in the state of Texas, as far as what I dealt with, to actually get my biological mother and biological father to sign the paperwork for me to go in the Army. Because it made no sense to me that they were capable to sign the paperwork for me to go to MAST. You know, as far as the tests and the interview and stuff like that. And I also did, here's the irony, which they probably didn't know. So the Navy SEALs kind of have some training near the Crystal Lake, Illinois area. Oh, and then there's the Great Lakes area that has basic training out there. So if the irony of the hypothetical that my biological mother and biological father were lying to MAST and then changed their mind, which anybody who knows how that goes when having already signed the documents where they legally had emancipated me to attend MAST. Just in the paperwork, they legally had emancipated me the first time because of the paperwork requirements to even go through the testing. So by that time frame, I was emancipated from Mike and Anna officially by the time I was 12 years old. And there's been the problems that there have been. Talk about needing to let it go when it comes to those people at this point, because I got to read over the documents and I got excited. So it's like, yes, finally. And so at the age of 12, because those who know how that paperwork is, I was officially emancipated. And if it was that I actually had been accepted to Marine and Science Technology School with the Navy attachment, hypothetically, and Mike and Anna tried to prevent that sort of stuff, I don't know what the legalities would be in regards of that. Because that wouldn't be my fault. I was distraught that I wasn't attending Marine and Science Technology School with the Navy attachment. I complained about that from 1996 all the way through 2000, even into 2013. Technically 2022, because I had really been excited to attend. And when the Navy guys started, actually shortly after that letter, I had earned my blue belt and Mike had pulled me out of the dojo, saying that I couldn't go any further at that point in time because of the legal requirements in reference to earning a black belt. And so that made sense. And I had seen that because he was a 3rd degree black belt in Taekwondo. And that's outside of my butt cooking, my butt poop. Whole different ball of wax. Anyway, so in that particular reference, I was complaining about it in Marlborough High School. I was complaining about it in St. John Vianney High School. I was complaining about it in Crystal Lake South High School. I was complaining about it during summer school. I was complaining about it during cheerleading that I didn't want to be involved in. It was a constant, bitching, and I was born in the year of the dog. It's a biological female, what can I say? And so it was a constant situation. And when it came time in reference to when I graduated high school a semester early in comparison to a year early, as I was going to do, Mike and Anna tried to fight the Army recruiter and myself as far as going into the Army. I've explained this in person, face-to-face in person, multiple times, especially in the state of Texas. And elsewhere, including my official YouTube videos, which make sure to like and subscribe to my official YouTube channel and share the link to my official YouTube videos. And so in that reference, the work that had whatever been known in those capacities, Anna wanted me to have, female friends, and it's like, I'm not that type of female. It's not that I can't have friends that are females. I just have to have friends that are females that are more similar to who I am than what you think. Because I'm not like you. I'm nowhere like you. Just because there's one or two things, and just because you gave birth to me, doesn't mean I'm anything like you. It's not that I don't want to have whatever. It's the fact that I know that I accept other people for who they are. It's the other way around. So trying to force that is not something that's going to work, because they're going to pick up on it. I'm obviously gonna. and I'm not going to do well with it. So don't try to force something that you don't have the right to force, especially by this time, because if I hypothetically actually had been approved to attend MAST, well, since 1996, the term is not AWOL, which is an irony regarding my dog's name. And I actually had a dog. He was a little half collie, half husky, and his name was AWOL, which is kind of funny because he would escape from Mrs. Hardwick's backyard to go to the Navy because there was a Navy base nearby, and he'd go swimming around in the swamp area, which was some part of the training facility where they would go and run, grab the rope, and swing across. And him having, anybody who knows what a half collie or a collie and a husky fur, well, he was half of each. So, thicker like a husky fur, but collie length hair is what his fur was like. So think of the thickness and the amount of for a husky, and yet the length of the collie hair. And that was my dog. And so he got the name AWOL, A for short, because he would go do that. The first time, apparently, the instructors, they didn't know he was there, obviously. And he was a friendly dog. Anybody who's had a collie especially, or been around collies, they're just naturally friendly. And huskies are actually extremely friendly as well. They're just a little bit more rambunctious at times. And so he was swimming around and, in those waters and with that fur. And this was the early 1980s. And so apparently, the story went that these guys were being road marched out to this area, and they were supposed to go and run and grab the rope to go swing across, and A was in the water. And so this guy apparently went to go run to grab the rope, and then A came out of the water with all the swamp stuff in his fur. Just covered, because how dogs jump to go, and when they're excited to play, so he's all like, and so A, goes and runs after them, and he's like, let's play, what's going on? And apparently these guys were scared. Oh no. He was just covered in all sorts of whatever, and one of the instructors, he turned around and he's like, is that a bark? In comparison. And so, come here. And A, runs up to him and he, gives him a kiss. It's like, this is a dog covered in swamp stuff. And so, he starts picking out from the half collie, half husky fur of the swamp gooby stuff of this, covering this half collie, half husky. And so, he got all washed up, and he had the collar, and so they call, and they're like, oh, Mrs. Hardwick, your dog went AWOL, and he's on whatever naval installation and stuff like that. So she goes and picks him up. And a few weeks later, and nobody could ever figure out how he got out. Nobody was capable to figure out where in the fence line, because the fence was taller than what was capable. There was no area underneath that he had dug or anything, and there were two other dogs that were there. And he just take off. He goes straight to the Navy. And so, he goes back back to the swamp area, and it became a thing after, so this one instructor, apparently, he knew what to look for. Every now and then, you know, because, you know, dogs can only do certain things, whatever it is, and so he'd see it, and then apparently what it was is if someone was really messing up, go grab the rope first. And so the guy'd go and run, and then A would come out, and his, you know, the swamp stuff all over him, being all rah, 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 but, you know, instead just being really friendly. Scaring everybody because he's covered in all this swamp stuff. Again, half collie, half husky, so all the swamp stuff's in his fur and everything like that. He's, you know, I mean, it's kind of funny if you look at some camo gear now. For certain types of guys. And so he's, you know, running after these guys, and, you know, this, whatever, it became what it was. Well, I was 2 years old. It's a toddler. And so I'm sitting with A. I'm just chilling with who's about to be my dog. And literally, and so, you know, I have a piece of pizza. And I'm eating my pizza. And I actually do remember this. I look at the pizza crust, and I didn't really like it because of wherever it came. It wasn't, I think I liked Carlos's pizza best. And I was just like, yeah, here you go. And I had already seen some of the other dogs' chew toys. And so A is just sitting there, and he starts kind of gnawing on the crust, and I was like, oh, it's like one of these, in my thoughts, you know, oh, it's just one of these chew toys. So I open up his mouth, I take the pizza crust out, and, you know, it's covered in drool. And he just looked at me with his big old brown eyes. Who's a good boy, who's a good boy? Before any of them could ever get up, I had already opened his mouth. This huge, you know, his baby's 70, 80-pound dog. And, you know, I'm a whopping little 2-year-old. And he's a good baby dog. He's so fluffy. And he just kept laying there just looking at me. It's like, yeah, you can have that back. And because of the way you have, you know, dog toys and stuff like that. So he starts chewing on it again. And then, yeah, I got it. Who's a good doggy? He's a good baby doggy. And he didn't growl at all. He didn't growl. He wasn't aggressive or anything. He just kind of, it wasn't a growl. It was just when, those who have been around dogs, they understand that kind of, you know, it's not a aggressive thing. It's more along the lines of, I really don't want to do sort of thing. And so get back and stuff. He's a good boy. Thank you. He's a good boy. That's a good boy? He's a good boy. And so, you know, just do the whole thing. And so he became my dog. Like that. Just became my dog. And he is very much my dog. I could go anywhere. Like, if I was inside the house, he would howl. He'd be all sad and pouty. I'd go outside, and it's like, he was my dog. And so that was what it was. And so I felt bad, though. Because every now and then I was like, can we go to the Navy? Which is the irony. Can we go to the Navy base? Why? Because I want to tell the guy who got used to seeing him that he's okay. And he was like, what? Mike, specifically, what? Yeah. I want, like, the guy who he would, you know, because he got to know A. And he was just like, what? He doesn't care about that dumb dog. And it's like, except he probably does. He might actually. And so it became an issue because Mrs. Hardwick had been one of Mike's foster moms at the time when he was a child. And so it was one of those, well, well, what if he does? And then it was, well, what would it matter? How would we find, well, I mean, there's gotta be a way. And so Mike was like, well, if it's that important to you, you figure out a way to let that guy know. So hi, whoever you are. I don't know how many years old you are. But if you remember a half collie, half husky, and you were in training and or one of the instructors, here's my puppy. He's a good boy. I taught him how to sit and shake hands. And roll over-ish. He's a good dog, so, he had his own house, But that would be funny if, in regards to finding a silver lining, if, whoever, I remember paying stations back then. And then, funny enough, I was born in the year of the dog myself, so, hi. His fur is thicker than my hair, though, obviously, so, and longer, yes, because, that's the truth I can make fun of, because it's still the truth. Anyway, so, nonetheless, I can make that joke in regards to Marine Science Technology School. Well, I got to do this, yay! I used to read to my dog. I actually did. He would so I'd take him off of the chain that Mike had put him on. And so he'd walk with me, and he was by it was similar to how my dog Ganesh was, right by my side. And as I took a step, I could stop, whichever one, Ganesh or A, and they would stop. Take a couple steps, and they'd go. Well, I didn't even have to have a leash with either one of them. They were just that way. It's been that way with most dogs that have been mine anyway. And so it's one of those, and I would have fun with that, but I would actually take them with me down outside of where the underground pool had been filled in with grass clippings and leaves, and past what was a raised garden bed behind where the Olympic filled-in pool was, with the doghouse that had been a raised vegetable garden, down the hill where it wasn't really a hill, it was kind of like a little mound, and then the lilacs and the dogwoods on the other side, and then the raspberry bushes in the rectangle-ish area. It wasn't chain link fence, it was rectangle fence that was rusted or whatever behind the raspberry bushes. And so I'd sit there and read to my dog, because I was that type of a person, or child, I guess, whatever. So it was as it was, and he'd sit there or lay there. He was a good dog, obviously. And so anyway, so for years I had done what I could to get to the Navy. And the irony, yes, when it came to Marine and Science Technology School with the Navy attachment, part of me was all like, maybe I'll find the guy. That'll be awesome. I'll find the guy and I'll be like, And the irony, sadly, in what have you, that summer when I had gone to Baptist Camp Lebanon, which would have been the summer before going to Marine and Science Technology School, if I had hypothetically actually been accepted to go, is when that happened with A. And so, in that particular reference regarding quite a few situations, went through the basic training and Army stuff, and had a head injury on Palm Sunday in 2000 during basic training. And so life went on as it did. I did make attempts to explain things as best as I could. And when I was in medical hold unit at Fort Sam Houston, I actually was sent to the Navy and Marine Special Warfare Unit down the street. So I was the Broadway Bank area, down that road somewhere along the left-hand side had been where the Navy Marine Special Warfare Unit was during that time, a few blocks down. And so went there, and in comparison, because the medical hold unit thought it was important, and it was ironically shortly after I told them about MAST. And they didn't know what MAST was, but I had told them about the Navy attachment. So when I actually had not been stationed there in that unit, though had been there assisting, I spoke with the XO and the CO. They were like, "You got into MAST?" And I had explained the difference as far as the invitation, and they said, "You got into MAST." And I said, "Well, how could I have gotten into MAST if I..." No, and they had explained to me that being invited into MAST, it was just formalities in reference to school placement. So if in that hypothetical that the Navy XO in the year of 2000 had actually been accurate, because he would know far better than I, and the Navy Marine Special Warfare Unit, the situation would officially actually be where in the year of 2000, the irony, which I know they did, Mike, Anna, and Patricia, they had actually denied themselves a 2-in-1 graduation. They denied themselves seeing me graduate from high school at the same time of denying themselves seeing me graduate from the Navy Academy, because MAST with the Navy attachment apparently is much higher level for a high school something another. The XO explained this to me. I can't remember what it is, but I know that you pretty much are, it's the interim between, it's higher ranking than ROTC from what it was explained to me. So it's higher ranking than ROTC in college. Not JROTC, but ROTC in college because of the type of schooling. And so, and most go directly into Annapolis, if I remember correctly, or something along the line. Or if they don't go to Annapolis, they go to something else. So that's what the irony, Mike, Anna, and Patricia, anytime they've ever complained about that, they literally denied themselves of that. So any complaints where they've been, because I know how they were, especially because of what I dealt with, every time they have ever complained to anybody about not seeing me go down the graduation aisle in high school, they denied themselves of seeing me graduate from one of the highest honors of schools, from what I was explained. That's what they did to themselves. So they don't have any right to complain at all, ever. Each and every factor that they've ever complained about regarding me is literally their own fault. So they denied themselves of seeing me graduate from that, all because Patricia threw her little titty baby temper tantrum. So Patricia especially has no right to complain ever. And you want to talk about an embarrassment at that point, because honestly. Anyway, so in that particular reference, that is what it is. So, and there's the irony, because I actually had discussed some of the references as to the underwater travel system. That was part of I think it was the second interview that I had discussed with the interviewer about what I was working on. And so, but Mike and Anna had known about it. And so there's that greed problem as far as that hypothetical. And so when you take in consideration how I earned 26 scuba diving certifications in the year of 2009, one of the questions from my interview, the second one, the male and female, if I remember there were 2 people at that interview, had asked if I really thought that the depth level could actually be sustained because of. And so I had explained certain situations and as far as the laying of the lines down, and I had said, well, you have to have a certain background and a certain training and all these other factors. And I know for a fact that I would be capable to the maintaining and sustaining of the physical health. That is a situation where I know that I'm young, I get that, I'm 12 years old. And so in that reference, if I were to prove that I could handle a larger amount of time at a deeper depth, and it went through this, the interview was a long process as far as that one was concerned, but it was as it was. So fast forward to the year of 2009, from 1996, I earned my 26 scuba diving certifications. I've told those civilian recreational scuba divers as far as not only the after effects from my head injury on Palm Sunday in 2000, but also that I had been invited to attend Marine and Science Technology School with the Navy attachment. And this is from before my certification through National Geographic Open Water. And so the situations went as they did. I told these people in the civilian recreational scuba diver sector regarding international scuba, as well as others at Clear Spring Scuba Park, Huntsville Quarry, which for those who have scuba dove in Huntsville Quarry, especially specifically in the year of 2009, in the city of San Antonio, there is the Eisenhower Park Quarry. If you don't believe my numbers, when it comes to my 3-volume book series, The Adventures of Susan Mealing, Scuba Diver Extraordinaire, go out to the quarry. And you can go out to 2 different quarry level areas out in the city of San Antonio. So there's a quarry that's actually near a shopping center. But there's out from 1604, there is an actual quarry that the city of San Antonio has been working on to build called Eisenhower Park. And so if you want to try, before you get to Eisenhower Park, when you're driving out from 1604, it's on the left, as well as the right, but you are capable to see those numbers. So any civilian recreational scuba diver that has an issue, or even military or law enforcement, all you have to do is go, I think it's Shavano Park. So all you gotta do, or near Shavano Park. And so all you gotta do is look at that. Because that's without any water in it, you actually get to see what the actual depth levels were in regards to 2009. So while some people might have had issues as far as my numerical aspects that were accurate, my only issues were in National Geographic Open Water Scuba Dive because of the calculations from 33 atmosphere, or 1 atmospheric measurement, 33 meters, and doing that calculation, which does go to the after effects of my head injury on Palm Sunday in 2000. And I went from college algebra with trigonometry and calculus to 2nd grade math. I used to have some notebooks, they were composition notebooks. I only had composition notebooks, the black and white type that have the black tape on the side, up until 2nd grade. In 3rd grade at Asher Holmes Elementary School, we had to have 3 and 5 subject notebooks for every grade after 3rd grade. It was mandatory. They didn't allow any, if we had, and those who get school lists, you know what I'm talking about, we weren't allowed composition notebooks after 2nd grade. So that was, if it's ever whatever, that literally is what my mathematical arithmetic was in 2nd grade, compared to when I was in high school at Crystal Lake South, and having also additionally gone to McHenry County Community College to take college level Geometry 101 AP level, as well as Biology 101 or 102 AP level, or I think that's how that went. It might be 102 Geometry AP, whatever it was back in the year of 1998. So while also going to summer school additionally, so that I could do what I could to graduate early, because I had this sensation, and so it's one of those, it didn't actually make any sense when you really think about it, because by official standards in 1996, I was emancipated from Mike and Anna, just for the Marine and Science Technology School, because you can't go through the process without officially getting that taken care of. So officially, I was emancipated in the year of 1996 by their own free will. Anything they have done after that officially has been harassment and stalking illegally, each and every time. Same thing as far as anything those people did to my son, my daughter, and I. So that's something those people need to accept for themselves, because I don't know what the federal laws are, but I'm fairly certain anybody who is as far as Marine and Science Technology School with the Navy attachment, it might be a different terminology, but the legal definition is probably still the same as far as being emancipated from them. And so that's what they have to accept as far as what they did. So it really didn't make any sense by the time of 1999, essentially from September, I think it was September 9th, 10th, or 11th in 1999, that I was ready to go. They had the recruiter station. It was a job fair in the gymnasium, if I remember, at Crystal Lake South. And it was, oh yeah, this, that, the other, and they ran the information and knew who I was. So as far as Mike, Anna, and Patricia, hypothetically, that length of time. So was as it was. So I had made every attempt to go into the Army. I explained to people, Mike, as a merchant Marine before, had smoked me for the military smoking. So I had to do push-ups while dealing with all that sort of stuff. He punched a hole in the wall in the basement in Illinois next to my head because he was angry that I would not back off as far as what I was gonna go do. Because he actually thought it would be better for him and Anna to pay for my college, which I didn't see why they would actually want to pay for my college, because realistically, the only aspect I could see was so they could wishfully hold that over my head, and I wasn't willing to be the way Patricia was. You know, it just wasn't something that I was going to tolerate. And so I did everything I could because I was not going to deal with that. I already saw how that went. And it just was not something that was worth it to me. I warned Patricia as well. In the year of 2003, I told her to go to college elsewhere. I told her, do not go to college within an hour or 3 hour minimum in the vicinity of wherever Mike and Anna are. She didn't want to believe me. I warned her, you do not want to go to college near them. And so it was one of those, no, I was emancipated in 1996, officially. The first time. The second time of legally being emancipated from Mike and Anna is 2000. So that's just the facts. Despite the situations, I'm the sponsor. So there's no need in those references because anything they would try to say would literally be like the Miranda rights. Anything you say can and will be held against you in a court of law, as far as Mike, Anna, and Patricia, because of the fact of having been emancipated since 1996. To just attend MAST, to be capable to apply. If hypothetically I actually had been approved to attend, that is whatever legal definitions up. Then the additional factors of the year 2000 in March. Then I'm a sponsor. So I have a blue ID card. That's an official aspect in those regards. Officially. They have not ever had any legal rights. Each and every time they've tried, I have pushed back against them because I've known that I have had my rights. Each and every time I warned people in the state of Texas, the way Mike and Anna and Patricia were. They wanted to try to claim otherwise, and it's like, what part of this stuff don't you understand? How difficult is it to understand? And then by the time of 2005, the excuses I got from people in the state of Texas were, well, you know, you look as you do. What does that have to do with anything? Well, you know, you have the subarachnoid hemorrhage in the frontal lobe of your brain. What does that have to do with? It doesn't change the facts. No matter what you want to try, it does not change the facts. Period. It's just the reality. There is no excuse. I don't care what certain wishes are regarding Mike, Anna, and Patricia. They knew the paperwork they were signing. Anybody who has spoken with Mike and Anna, you would know officially. So as much as Mike and Anna would wish to try to be innocent on that, I'll call that out any day of the week, because if hypothetically I actually was accepted after receiving the invitation shortly after, I mean, all you have to do is look, and yes, it could be considered as circumstantial evidence. I'll do the devil's advocate thing. I can acknowledge that. I can look at many sides. So yeah, it's circumstantial that I earned second and third place in sparring and form in an international competition for Taekwondo after going through the entire circuit when I was 12 years old. Just before I could have gone to high school. Sure, and in that circumstantial sort of way, where in that international competition for Taekwondo, where I earned my way to go by earning both whatever level of first, second, or third place in both sparring and form throughout the entire circuit for that particular capability to then proceed to the international Taekwondo level, where I earned second and third place as a green belt 12-year-old against the lowest rank for the international people and the international individuals were brown belts with black stripes tape and above. Whereas the individuals in the circuit within the United States of America were red belts with tape and or red belts with the stripe and tape and black belt above. After the second or third circuit, it was just black belts and above. And I earned my way for the United States of America in the Taekwondo competition circuit. So yeah, it's circumstantial evidence in that devil's advocate sort of way that the sensei at my dojo that I attended, which he was the only instructor at, Sensei Bob, he didn't have, if he had others that he taught, or I should say that he allowed to teach, it was usually only in a substitute way. He was one of those instructors when it came to the sensei stuff. And only one time, for a short amount of time, he let the entire dojo know that he was going to be on some sort of whatever for a couple of weeks, and when he came back, it would be as it would be. And he had all that stuff in his office. So hypothetically, there could be some whatever type of whatever connection of whatever regarding his military connection, and just so circumstantial hypothetical aspects, the same time frame, I earned my way to meet Governor Christine Todd Whitman because of my Oceanic poster as far as the school in regards of Marlboro Middle School. It just so happens to be that after all of that, which occurred, the official capacity of the international Taekwondo competition to the Governor Christine Todd Whitman meeting and Sensei Bob having that whatever couple of week thing was shortly, maybe 2 months at most, my invitation to Marine and Science Technology School. Sure, that could be circumstantial evidence. Sure, that could be, I mean, it's just a coinky-dink, it's just 3 or so aspects. Having already explained to Sensei Bob, though, what I explained to the civilian recreational scuba divers about going out to the Atlantic area of the ocean as I was, and having told Sensei Bob that I was swimming out past the jetties. So, you know, it could just be another circumstantial hypothetical. Sure. However, if that hypothetical up, then Mike and Anna have nobody to blame except for themselves. Because if hypothetically I had, and all that needs to be done is people in Marine and Science Technology School with the Navy attachment to look at their own forms. And if they haven't been updated since 1996, or whatever the versions of that they might have, they would know. As far as my being emancipated since 1996 from Mike and Anna. Officially since 1996. And then a second time in whatever, an extra version. Like, so I'm already emancipated in 1996, just as an extra so you know. Here's another one. Completely. So I don't know as far as what hypotheticals they're up. But that's something those people have to deal with at that point, if I'm accurate. So then, in regards of my scuba diving, and not just regarding how I earned 26 scuba diving certifications the way I did, if some people, in reference whether to MAST, or the Coasties, or the Marines, or the Navy, or even the Army or Air Force, active duty, National Guard, reservist veterans, and or law enforcement, and or the civilian recreational scuba divers, well, why didn't I discuss the stuff in the water in this lecture? I can explain, well, since having already gone over that my work is my work, since having already explained for years and years and years and years, over almost 13 years to this year in 2022 from 2009, as far as it's 13 years officially since my first scuba diving certification I earned, and every scuba diving certification through March into April and now beginning in May. So it's 13 years. And so again, there's Eisenhower Park, as far as the quarry, all that work that I did on my own, on top of, you know, all the other stuff, that's been proven as far as the geological formation aspects. So, why didn't I really go into it, other than I wasn't ever asked? Why didn't I write about it in greater detail back in 2009, back in 2010, back in 2011, back in 2012, back in 2013, I have my son, my daughter to take care of. So if those selfish, civilian recreational scuba divers were throwing a temper tantrum, and or whoever else that could have just spoken with me in truth and asked me, I mean, I had informed people off the bat, literally the day of. The day of, in August of 2009, obviously the first boat, the second boat, which was the boat that I had dove from, the Denny's, the Days Inn employee. I mean, there's multiple areas in just Key West alone that I personally spoke with. Now, granted, my hair, because of my scuba diving, had faded because of the way reds are. And then through from the Florida Keys all the way back to Boca. Then, after that, then there's my ex-in-laws that I also had in that reference spoken with. Then all the way to Steele, Alabama, having explained there to a former Marine from Vietnam, by the way, as well as great-grandma Nichols, and the whatever second cousin Brandon of whatever. Then through Tennessee, back through, so the different gas stations, and remember in Boca, then there's that, because if in Boca, which apparently is the headquarters for NAUI, if they could have said something to me, but they chose not to because of me being a PADI scuba diver, and actually in the headquarters area, that lets you know exactly how recreational civilian scuba diver that is. Because if they were capable to verify it that day, there is no excuse why no one actually spoke with me in person, face to face in person, and just asked. In comparison to assuming that there was any other way. Because it's not to go through someone else. That's sort of arrogance in certain regards. Because again, emancipated. Ex-in-laws. What part of that don't you understand? Especially when it comes to my son and my daughter being minor ages in elementary school. Then there's that. Common sense. Etiquette. So important. Respect, so important. Well, how could you ever be considered respectful if you went through anybody else? I'm just pointing that out there. There's only one person to speak with etiquette and respect about my scuba diving. Guess who that is? The one and only who did it. Yeah. So in that reference, I made attempts in regards of international scuba after having initially got back. I told my ex-in-laws, told people in the neighborhood that I was living in. Actually told my neighbor's son at that time, as far as that was concerned. Then told the people on the other side of the cul-de-sac at the first week back in Texas. The son, Bobby, in regards to my neighbors in my house, Carrollton, Texas, they were informed. The couple across the parking area of the cul-de-sac, the Caucasian female and African American male, they were told in person within 7 days. Then there's international scuba that was informed. Then there was also Clear Spring Scuba Park. Then there was the international scuba in Garland. As far as my cavern scuba diving certification. Then there were others during that time frame. Then, in regards of my cavern scuba dive certification as well. But why would it ever be important to ever make any recommendations as far as someone to speak with? And when a major general in the Army can have cordial aspects to make an appointment for a colonel and 2 enlisted soldiers, and I to meet despite that situation, what level of haughtiness would it have to be in regards to the civilian recreational scuba divers? What level would that actually officially show in the Carrollton, DFW area of Texas in regards of what I dealt with because of how I physically look, because of being medically retired from the Army, because of my children's biological father's death during the time frame of and because of the Iraq and Afghanistan war in that area of Farmers Branch, Carrollton, and Garland and DFW, mainly in the Dallas area of Texas. What does that show? I already went over in reference to Walmart to go buy a carton of cigarettes using my blue ID card. What does that show as far as those types of people and their viewpoint of active duty National Guard reservists and veterans? And yet at the same time, their complaints, while they want to claim that they voted for 44 and that they're so woke, and yet not, obviously. The irony of those types of people that would claim to be woke are actually still asleep. They're not awake worth anything, because if they actually were awake in comparison, then they wouldn't have to use the word woke, because awake, takes 2 syllables, whereas woke is something, someone sleepy would say. It's almost like, whoa, I'm gonna go back to sleep. In comparison to awake. So, in reference to my scuba diving, I've been awake the whole time. It just goes on everybody else for wishful thinking the entire time. Pretending like in whatever capacities of. So there is the fact that if you repeatedly do certain things over and over and over again, it's either you're trying to convince yourself of something, and if it's something where you pretend to be stupid, at what level do you start learning that you actually are? In those regards of what was that pop culture reference regarding South Park? Because that's literally what I would personally view that as. I had a discussion on the phone with my daughter at one point in time, and a official Joe Rogan Experience video interview with, I think it was still Timothy Poole, who had brought that up as far as a latter portion regarding that as a secondary reminder as far as those situations. So, if in regards of those types that think they're woke, well, do you wonder why there have been certain problems in regards of the irony of how many woke want to defund whatever? Because maybe if you didn't do certain things on social media, the background checks would be capable to be done correctly. And so if you have a problem in reference to those woke types that get involved in so again, congratulations, E=MC² regarding Elon Musk and the Twitter situation. For those people that have claimed to be woke, as far as whatever wording, that have needlessly caused any problems to anybody in the United States of America, as far as the social media platforms, how do you think there would ever be the capability for not even taking in consideration the formation of the Space Force? But why would you think that there would ever be the plausibility of background checks being done correctly. Even SpaceX has a portion in the application that puts the Twitter or social media areas. So how are people, whether it's E equals MC squared, Mr. Bezos regarding Blue Origin, NASA, the Pentagon, DARPA, whatever, as far as Homeland Security, how do you think that's going to actually be if that type of garbage has been going on? Because if that's been a needless problem, not just for me, obviously, what would you expect realistically in reference to those woke types? What would you think would actually have occurred in reference to background checks, in regards of law enforcement, of whatever level? Whether it's local, state, or federal, what did you think was going to happen? If you actually had foresight and thought for a moment and just were honest in comparison to, those feelings. If you actually dealt with your feelings in comparison to that so-called woke aspect, maybe, just maybe, a whole bunch of situations would have been capable to be taken care of sooner, correctly. So what damage has those woke types caused? Because just think, all of those actual qualified with quality individuals that actually have the background, how many did you, especially for those environmentalist types? Because if you're one of those environmentalists that claim to care about the ocean, or claim to care about climate change, or claim to care about whatever levels of trash, or claim to care about, those vegan types and whatever, how many people have you prevented by doing your so-called woke situation in reference to what could actually be genuinely beneficial and assistive because of your feelings? Because there's no excuse for that. Because if it's only because of your feelings that you claim you're woke, well, wake up. Pay attention to details. See the details and the larger picture in comparison to just your feelings. So if you don't want to take in consideration the formation of the Space Force in 2020, all you have to do is look at what the individuals have been protesting, rioting, whatever. Because maybe, just maybe, if people could have actually done the background checks in comparison to those types, doing whatever needless problems across the board, and actually were capable to get the fuller and larger amount of truth, maybe you wouldn't have so many issues. Maybe the training, hypothetically, would be better. Maybe all of the stuff that those woke types have been doing in those needless ways wouldn't have been any problems. Did you ever think about that? That if those so-called woke types actually got out of the way, that those who could actually handle stuff would have? So if it's just because of whatever excuses, you might want to take in that consideration. So in regards of whatever individuals in the United States of America, then think about the supposed legal immigration. Because then there's those factors in reference to which sectors those individuals usually go to. What issue would that be for the United States of America, as well as the world, to take in consideration. See, if you just told the truth from the start, I would guesstimate it would be easier. So, I could have, if there were actually people who spoke with me and actually asked me in truth. So, like, let's say somebody was friends with or knew someone who worked at whatever type of employment, and instead of just having common sense to just speak with me in truth, but you wanted to do some special coattail riding type, how much time did you waste doing that needless garbage in that hypothetical? Because, yeah, sure, if you're gonna assume, because I was born and raised in New Jersey, oh, well, we'll do some schmoozing. Or you could pay attention to the fact that people from New Jersey, that's not how that works. You're probably thinking of New York City in comparison to the way New Jerseyans are. So I don't know what the pop culture reference most likely would be on that, but that is not a New Jerseyan thing. That would be a mistake upon the types of in that hypothetical. So if in that reference there were people who wanted to do things in that sort of similarity regarding, oh, well, look, and no, that's not how it works. You don't ever make that mistake when it comes to something that's actually serious in comparison. You willingly cost yourselves that for yourselves because it's not a debt that would be owed to, because it has to actually be discussed. See, that's how that actually goes. And so if you don't actually do that, that's not a favor at that point. Those types that have wanted to try to figure out how that goes, if that's a hypothetical, well, you actually have to have discussions to ask how that goes. So I can tell you, doing that sort of stuff where maybe it's like, oh, well, look, we can give you this. Or you could just make the appointment and I could just speak with in comparison. We can talk about the other stuff at that point in comparison. That is, unless some people feel of themselves to be that much more important. Because especially if there were certain individuals that others in the hypothetical aspect knew that they had actually wanted the answers, but those people wanted to do the schmoozing and whatever of whatever. Well, just think of how much time you wasted, how much similar to Mike, Anna, and Patricia hypothetically that you'd be. Instead. So, I chose the time frame that I did because I knew how certain types of people were in 2009 and 2010 and 2011 and 2012 and 2013. And I wasn't willing until a certain point in time. Just by the time of the end of 2009, I knew all I needed to know as to why I didn't need to put it in writing until a 10-year time frame. Because of what I was seeing regarding certain types of people. Because I knew exactly what would happen. Those types that would want to try and wouldn't pay attention to detail, would be too arrogant to pay attention to the actual requirements, even in writing. Additionally, I knew at the very minimum there'd be some who would be willing to wait-ish. But see, that's the thing. It's the aspects of being patient. Because if you're not going to have the common sense, courtesy, and respect and etiquette to just ask me and use these specific words of in the water, well then, why would I bother going into any details other than the scuba diving portions that I went over? Because what would your clearance level be? If you knew that I had been invited to attend Marine and Science Technology School with the Navy attachment, what would your clearance level be? And where would we have been discussing situations? Because if you didn't make the offer to make an appointment for me after a clarification, again, a 2-star general was willing to make an appointment for a full bird colonel, 2 enlisted soldiers, neither one above an E6, I think they were both E5, and I, to have an appointment. So what level of haughtiness would that take from anybody else? If a 2-star general could make an appointment for a full bird colonel, 2 E5s, and a legal widow, though ex-wife in the other portion of, as far as someone who didn't graduate basic training, though has a blue ID card of and for the Armed Forces of the United States of America. Or, as I said, medically retired. From the Army. So what would that level be? Well, the answer for this lecture would be nobody. And apparently thought about that, even though I had discussed it and went over those details over and over again, time and time again. Yep, pretty simple. And so what amount of pretentiousness would it be for certain types of individuals to think that driving in certain areas, unless under certain, who would be arrogant enough to ever think that that would work after all those other aspects? Because what level of haughtiness would you have to be? You know, the equivalent of Starbucks in San Marcos at exit 200 after, you know, the claim of San Marcos halfway point and Carrollton halfway point in Texas of Starbucks at exit 200. What level of arrogance and haughtiness would that be for that same aspect of nothing new? But unlike then, if I'm in a close enough vicinity, you can be the way the 2-star general was and get over your haughtiness and get over your arrogance and get over your ego in those particular references. Because when a 2-star general, despite the situation, was capable, despite the situation, to schedule a meeting with a full bird colonel, 2 E5s, and someone who's medically retired from the Army who did not graduate basic training, you and that woke aspect don't have any ground to stand on in reference to my scuba diving and my work. Literally, that would be, again, just childishness.
So there realistically would just be vanity, egotism, sloth, pride, greed, etc. in those references of hypotheticals in every capacity of. And then how the if factor, so what I authored whichever fiction book, what else have I accomplished? In comparison to anyone who might want to complain, what would be the difference regarding what accomplishments or exceptional-ish aspects to that hypothetical? Because then there's that factor where I haven't denied being who I am. Then there's those other capacities to take in consideration, because then what level of haughtiness would that type actually have to be? Especially if there were any needless problems caused to my two minor children when they were in elementary school and or middle school and or high school. That would kind of be like, what levels of lack of intelligence would that have to be? That would actually kind of be going back to that woke being asleep. Let's wake up now. It's time to wake up. In that hypothetical, so for those who may have had whatever issues to just accept the reality, all right, I've explained as best as I can. And so it's not for me to accept my work as to what I've done. I already had. Yeah, it's kind of like everybody else. That's not really my issue. That's literally everybody else's issue in comparison to mine. So anybody that's had an issue that could have just asked me with etiquette and respect, but that's everybody else's issue for their choice as to whether they asked me with etiquette and respect. So could have just been asked, and if there were certain individuals that had informed people, such as at International Scuba, I guess it just depends on those factors. So, it is as it is. But there's that clarification because, again, having been emancipated from Mike and Anna, and then as the legal guardian in regards to Patricia, because Mike and Anna would not ever allow just anybody to be the legal guardian. So that also lets you know the truth on that, because sometimes actions speak louder than words, including written word, because you got to take that in consideration too in reference to MAST, or Marine and Science Technology School, with the Navy attachment. And all such connections, such as my biological mother's biological siblings or half-siblings and their spouses and children. And so then there's those factors. So it's just the merger that's going to be occurring. Everybody, prepared for that, because there is that factor of today is the 1st of May, 2022, and it is the official countdown to the 6th of June, 2022. Literally 1 month and 5 days away. Yes, it is. Yep. Yes, it is. So, or 36 days away. So the clarifications. And so in regards of the hypotheticals going to the technological aspects, it's not just the social media. Of course, it's what types of social media. So how do you socialize? What do you socialize about? What is that Ludacris song where he raps about what you got in your house, what type of car you drive or something, and then what's that, there's a country song, what's your name, what's your sign, something another like that. Yeah, take that in consideration. And so, because of those interconnected portions, so phone calls and emails, text messages, whichever technology device over whichever amount of time, wherever, Did you ever turn your cell phones back in regards of, or did you recycle them, or how did that go? Those particulars, same thing with laptops and desktops, tablets, and I know I've forgotten a few here and there. I have recycled a few, but the Geek Squad Best Buy situations, 13 of those, and then there was a desktop and 2 laptops I gave to Anna. Yeah, 2 different desktops. They were both, one was Gateway, and I can't remember what the other one was, and then 2 different laptops or 3 different laptops. And then there's one that I had chosen to leave after putting some information on at a location in the state of Texas. When I went to go and do some updates to make sure that as best as possible, to those who would require that honesty a little bit in a capacity of understanding in a different level, including a little chippy thing. Just for verifications, just truth. And so, yeah, sure, I was dealing with zapping and stuff like that, but I was doing the best I could because so many different situations. Not the first time I've done that before either, too. That's just one time in reference to 2019. Though those other 2 desktops and laptops, that's from the time frame around 2003 through 2012 or 13. And then there's the laptops as far as Geek Squad, as far as the 13. Those ones that could, technically those would be 2006 to 2013. And so those 13 laptops for that reference. And so yeah, that doesn't include desktops and other aspects of during that time frame of 2006 to 2013. And that's not all of. So there's the desktops and laptops from 2000 to 2006, before learning about that accidental warranty program. There's only one in reference to the Fire laptop that I believe that was a compact by accident. So there's that. And then all those little chippy things. And all those, smaller chippy stuff. Just to be as safe as possible. The stuff as far as Anna and Patricia, that was, to actually assist with college. In high school. And then, but in comparison to 2019, maybe there's a different capacity that can be seen in regards of, maybe there's even an odd connection as to certain oddities, as far as the way Mike and Anna and Patricia had been, that capacity, those types, those references. and what I've dealt with over the years and decades, needlessly. Hypothetically, especially 1996 Marine Science Technology School with the Navy attachment. So I've done as best as I could. So hopefully that's good enough. Though those throttling situations, well, how else would people actually be capable to have that clearance aspect correctly? I don't know if I officially did not know for clarifications. I had sensations of, but I didn't have any official clarifications regarding that, except for having seen where T-Mobile and Sprint were going to go together, which reminded me of how AT&T and Western Union regarding Ma Bell, that particular factor, and but kind of in a reverse, because then you've got dish, satellite television and internet on top of those cell phone stuff, and then cable TV, because I don't know how that goes regarding, are there ways to see how many viewers there are for television shows? And if so, is there a time frame that began? I don't know. As a child, I was only allowed to watch G-rated movies and television shows until after I turned 13 years old. So I wouldn't know what those requirements or even aspects of those possibilities. Maybe there's some people who might. So, but there are those clarifications, so is as it is. There, as far as scuba diving, is as it is. If it was that big of a deal, I kind of figured I'd be asked in comparison. But, kind of that made sense to me, because I don't know what other people have dealt with in reference to after effects from a head injury. Not necessarily on Palm Sunday in 2000 for them, but or the subarachnoid hemorrhage, because I don't know if every head injury has a subarachnoid hemorrhage in the frontal lobe of their brain that they would have to deal with the way I had. And the after effects from that additionally, such as headaches and migraines and memory deficits and cognitive disorders. I don't know what each and every person has had to deal with. I do know that you can't ever prevent a head injury, though you can do stuff to, as best as possible. So those woke types, will you prevent people who actually might need assistance, hypothetically? If you do that, because then how awake are you really? Because could you actually care about life and genuinity? Could you truthfully say so? Especially all of those individuals who've rioted after certain situations, because how could you riot? Wouldn't it be hypocritical for the ones who have, regards to certain situations, if there was any involvement in those particular references? Because wouldn't that be technically considered as? Because realistically, what could your technological connection have been if you had hypothetically in those references regarding the Twitter that E=mc² had recently purchased and done what possible as far as a starting point. Because how many lives to take in consideration, and advancements that could have been for each and every reference of, I guess. There are demographics somewhere. So it's not that I haven't been willing to discuss it. That's the furthest thing from the truth I have. Though I have to actually have the knowledge and understanding who I'm actually speaking with is capable to understand the knowledge. And not in a way where it's considered in that incapable to distinguish truth from those fiction types. So while if you have the capability to distinguish the truth between fiction, okay, good. Sure, you could see the fiction in regards of certain capacities, but do you have that cognition to have known that? I have leniency for certain types. See, when it comes to the knowledge that not just in reference to head injury after effects, I've known about individuals who have had Tourette's. I've known about individuals who have had, I think it's called Down syndrome, and a few others. I've known about Asperger's. I think the first time I heard about it was someone in Illinois, actually, if I remember. There's a few others. So I've had, and then there's New Jersey and those references. So I've had that knowledge. There's a pattern of behavior on that. So when it comes to certain factors, I can understand. Though I've done what I could, especially to make sure it's clear. That's why certain factors in regards of online stuff, thou shalt tell the truth. Thou shalt not take in vanity. Thou shalt not blaspheme. Thou shalt not covet what is not yours. That's why intellectual property rights. Because what does that say? What responsibility? Because while some people in that would find that to be a game, well, I guess you shouldn't have rioted or protested, correct? Because if from the time frame of the year of 2015 or 2016 regarding the publishing of my books and those types, although I'll start at the year of 2013 as to how 2009 officially. 2009, anything at all. What could have been prevented if it wasn't for those types of involvement without permission? Now think about how it is 36 days to the merger between T-Mobile and Sprint. Today is the 1st of May, 2022. Go check out my journal blog, The Ordinary PSA. Look around my website, www.susanmeeling.com. Make sure to subscribe to my official YouTube channel. Like and share my official YouTube video links. And if you're going to leave a comment, please do have etiquette and respect. Again, congratulations, C equals MC squared. Hopefully, that warp speed of clarifications, I'm going to guesstimate there's a few who can see the need for that work. First of May, 2022.